Hello YouTube, it's Simon here with Hobbies and Man once again, and today we're going to be doing another manga review. Today we're going to be looking at the first saga of Yu Yu Hakusho. There you go. There's Yu Yu Hakusho right there. So this saga is called, let me check, it's called The Spirit Detective Saga. It's the first 57 chapters of the series, and the author is Yoshihiro Tagashi. Let me put these up here so you guys can see them. So, yeah, it's Yoshihiro Tagashi. The publisher is Panini Manga Mexico, because these are from Mexico, of course. The demographic here is shonen, and the genres are martial arts, supernatural, urban fantasy, and it does have an adaptation. I think it's what actually popularized this series in the West. And it doesn't seem to be that popular outside of the US, like in the West, as in like the actual West. I don't think it's that popular, or it wasn't really that popular until relatively recently. It was only really popular in the US. I'm not sure if that's true though, but that does seem to be the case. So it is what it is. So let me show you this edition before we move on to the review. So here's the first 5 volumes. This is based on the Kanzenban edition. I think it's exactly the same as the Kanzenban edition, but there's some little flourishes here and there. There are a little bit different, and this is also very similar to the Spanish from Spain edition, but it's not exactly the same. So here's the spines so you guys can see them. It's pretty bright outside, so you might not be able to notice, but they're different colors. So it's green, then pink, then yellow, then blue, then the last one is a different type of pink. So this corresponds to each individual character that's on the cover. So here we have Yu Yu Hakusho in green, and here's the back of it. It's a bigger version of the same picture. The book also has an interior sketch image. Again, that bright green. Here's the back. The inside has color matching on the front pages or the back page. I don't know what they're called, but like the frontis pages, I guess. It has a little bit of chibi artwork in the front. A black page followed by whatever color pages they may be in a single chapter. So it does have a mix. It has these normal color pages, but these are normal paper with ink. They're not like special comic book paper. It also has these like how they were published in the magazine originally kind of paper, which is like two-tone paper. And I do think there's also some other type of color pages in here somewhere, but I don't remember where. So that's volume 1. And I'll show you the rest of them in a minute. So this first volume also came with a bookmark, but I don't have it within reach, so I'll just put up a picture of it now. I think it's the same image as this on one side, and the text on the other side, but you guys have already seen it at this point, so yeah. Here's number 2. This is Kuruma on the cover. This is a dark pink, or like a fuchsia color. Kuruma is basically the same as Shun from Saint Seiya. There you go, the interiors are just blank. I really like this style. I think it looks really, really nice. Here's the back side of it. The color matching on the interiors. The cute chibi page. The black page. And this one doesn't have any color pages at the beginning. It might not have any color pages at all. Let me double check. It does have some in the tinted colors. Then number 3, Kazuma Kuwabara, I think is his name. There you go. Again, color matching on the inside. The front chibi page. The black page. And normal paper after that. Here's number 4. This one is Hiei. And here's the back of it. Back, and then the front. The color matching page. And the chibi page as well. This one does not have a black page. It has a art thing, and then it has the black page. So that's cool. Then we have number 5. This is Botan. But of course, in the anime, she has blue hair. In this Kanzabon, she has blonde hair. I don't know which is the correct one, but I do like blonde hair Botan a little bit more than the blue-haired one. So, yeah. I think it makes her stand out more to have like a normal hair color than it does to have that crazy hair color, because, I don't know, it's just interesting to have, you know, a prominent female character not have outlandish hair. So, yeah. That's it. So, the premise of this story, more or less, while I fix up all of these books, is that this guy, Yusuke, or Meshi, is a very upcut kind of kid. He's like, sorry, not upcut. It's a cut up kind of kid. He's a delinquent. He gets into fights and he wins usually. And overall, he's just kind of, you know, not really interested in school and stuff like that. But one day, as he is being, you know, a bit of a vagabond and kind of going all over the place, he actually sees that this little girl is going to be crushed by a car. Turns out that's not the case, but he didn't know that at the time. So he rushes to save her, and he actually ends up dying in the process. He meets the ruler of the underworld, or the ruler of the afterlife, and the ruler's like, "Hey man, you weren't supposed to die yet, but I can't just let you go back, so we have to make a deal." And so the deal is that Yusuke is going to stay as a spirit for a certain amount of time, complete some tasks that the ruler of the afterlife is going to give him, and then eventually he will be allowed to return to his body. And so we see all of these adventures kind of play out in the first arc of the saga. And then from there, once he is reincarnated into his own body, what happens is that he is basically continuously contacted by the ruler of the afterlife, Koenmon, through Botan, and is assigned different tasks, different what's it called, like cases that he has to solve. Along the way, it stops being about that, and it starts turning more into a battle manga that you're more familiar with, like Bleach or Shaman King. So it's an interesting kind of development. It's really, you know, not as amazing as everyone seems to make it out to be. And I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just really not like my preferred story style. Or maybe it's also that just everyone else has a huge amount of nostalgia. And it was one of those series that hit at the right time for them to make them really, really meaningful. The same way that Naruto hit for a lot of us in our 20s, right? So it is what it is. Overall, I do really enjoy it. And I am going to finish collecting this edition at some point. But it's not necessarily my top priority right now. But it is an interesting story. So let's actually get into the review, because it's going to drag a bit as it is. So yeah, there's 5 arcs in this first saga. There's the Yusuke's Ordeal arc, which is more or less what I explained. Then the Artifacts of Darkness arc, Genkai's Tournament, and then the Beast of Maze Castle arc, and then the Rescue Yukina arc. So each one of these arcs is not very long. It's about, I don't know, like less than 20 chapters each. And yeah, so the first arc is the death, the introduction of the story, and then the rebirth of Yusuke, right? So that's more or less what it's contained within 18 chapters. And most of the time, the chapter is more or less a mystery of the week kind of thing. It does have this kind of Scooby-Doo feel early on. And there is a moment in the story about halfway through this first arc where Yusuke gets to reincarnate, but only for a single day. And this is because he has to go do something to make sure that Keiko, his childhood friend and female love interest, manages to stay alive because there's some situation occurring and she needs help. So Yusuke is allowed to, you know, resurrect for a while and to do the thing that he has to do with her. So yeah, after that, Yusuke is reborn, and eventually Botan shows up, and she's like, "Hey man, you have been given the rank of Spirit Detective. You will be called upon by Koenmon Jr., and you will have to follow his edicts and solve these different spiritual crimes happening, and you're going to be our, force on the ground, right? And it's a pretty interesting kind of thing. And the first major case that Yusuke has to deal with is that there's these 3 great treasures that have been stolen. And so Yusuke must go retrieve them. And in order to retrieve them, he has to battle the holder of each of these treasures and collect them from them after he beats them. So, yeah, he also manages to earn some interesting skills. He has been given the ability to access his spiritual energy, his soul energy or something like that, his spirit energy. And so he's able to use the ray gun, which is a spirit gun. That's how he manifests his abilities. So he can shoot spiritual bullets out of his finger every once in a while in order to help him achieve his goals, right? So really interesting stuff. And then he learns about the 3 different people that he's supposed to fight. The first one is Goki, who holds the jewel, the great jewel. I don't know what it's called. It has a specific name. I just don't know the English name because I read it in Spanish. Then he has to battle Kuruma, who has the mirror, and Hei, who has a demon sword. Although I do think that he actually had something else going on, but I don't remember what it was. And so he eventually finds them, and he's like, okay, it's time to battle. I need to get those treasures back, right? So he battles Goki, the orc, or the soul-eating Oni or something like that. I don't remember his name, but he's some sort of troll, ogre type character, right? So, yeah. He actually pretty easily beats him. This is a recurring kind of theme in this story that the fight scenes really aren't that long. They're not really all that important. It's mostly just the setup and then the emotional aspects that get explored during the fights. So yeah, Yusuke is able to beat him pretty easily. And so he retrieves one of the objects. And then he tracks down Kuruma, and he learns that Kuruma is actually it was raised as a human for a long time. He has a human life, and he wanted the mirror for a specific reason. But the mirror, the way that it works is that it removes something of equal value in order to give you the thing you wish for. And so it turns out that the wish that Kuruma wants to have is one that's going to kill him. So he chooses to not use the mirror and gives it to Yusuke to return to Koenma Jr. So, yeah, then he battles Hei, or however you say his name. And in this case, Kuruma shows up to help Yusuke deal with Hei because he's a very strong opponent. He's an interesting character. And so the battle ends and Yusuke manages to achieve his goal. So and then we move on to the tournament saga, or the tournament arc, where Yusuke is told to infiltrate this martial arts tournament in order to battle this spiritual villain, right? And he joins in the tournament, and it turns out that Genkai is looking for a new student to pass on their techniques because they're getting old and it's about time that they do so, or something like that. And they are given, like the contestants are given a lot of wacky challenges. This is very similar in structure and style to the fortune teller Baba arc in Dragon Ball, so it's kind of interesting to see those parallels there. Eventually, there's only 8 students left, or there's only 8 possible disciples left, and one of them is Kuwabara, who is Yusuke's classmate and rival of some sorts. Then this character Shaolin, who happens to be the bad guy of the arc, Kazemaru, Yusuke, of course, and a few others, right? So Yusuke and Kazemaru fight. Yusuke moves on. Yusuke then has to wait out the fight while Shaolin and Kawabara duke it out. Kawabara loses, and then Yusuke has to battle Shaolin, who turns out to be Rando, the bad guy of the arc, and they battle it out. Yusuke wins, and Yusuke becomes a new disciple of Genkai. And so he gets a lot of training and develops over the course of an untold amount of time before they start the next arc. And we don't actually get to see any of these training, so it is what it is, right? And then we have the last arc or two here, which are Yusuke and Kuwabara getting into the demon realm with Hiei and Kuruma, and then they have to go battle the four beasts of the Maze Castle. And so Kuruma battles the turtle character, the turtle beast, who's an earth elemental of some sorts. Then Kawabara battles the tiger, who is this kind of barbarian-esque brawler. Then Hiei battles the dragon. And of course Yusuke is left over with the phoenix, because those are the four mythical beasts. I think it's a Chinese thing. I'm not really sure, but it's a thing that commonly shows up. You know, black turtle, red phoenix, blue dragon, white tiger, I think is what it is. So it's kind of interesting, and there's a big battle here, and there's a big emotional component here because Phoenix has this flute that allows him to control humans via these parasites, and this actually causes Yusuke to have to battle this guy in earnest because this guy has Botan and Keiko hostage at their school. So Yusuke has to beat him no matter what because he wants to save Keiko and Botan, right? So yeah, and then the final arc here is that Yusuke and Kuwabara are sent over to save Yukina, who happens to be Hiei's younger sister. And this is not really all that important. They're basically infiltrating this rich guy's house. This rich guy sees an opportunity to make some money off their, misfortunes and their battles. And so he televises this event to a few other friends of his. And he watches as Yusuke and Kawabara fight through a bunch of different characters and eventually meet the Toguro brothers, who are a big important character group later on. And the story ends with Yusuke and Kuwabara winning and saving Yukina, but also setting up the next confrontation, which is the arc tournament, and specifically setting up Toguro as a big bad for the next arc. And that's really all there is to it. So yeah, really good stuff. I actually do enjoy it a lot. However, it just doesn't feel like as epic as I thought it was supposed to be. And it's not really a big deal. It's just different from what I expected. But I do like it. So in terms of characters, we have Yusuke, Botan, Kuwabara, Hiei, Kuruma, and Keiko. Everyone else that's mentioned is not really important or are a very, very minor secondary character, like Kawabara's older sister and Yusuke's mom. Although Yusuke's mom and her relationship with Yusuke does seem similar to relationships I've seen with other characters, like Ryu and his mom in Toradora is kind of similar to that. So it's kind of interesting. But it's not really that, appealing or important or interesting or actually that major to the story. In terms of world building, we get a lot of generic, I was about to say generic, but that's not really the case. We get a lot of general kind of like Eastern afterlife philosophy. I think most of it is supposed to be based on Buddhism. I'm not too sure. I don't know too much about Buddhism beyond like the generic storytelling premise of like this prince that decided to go out into the world and experience his own, pain and suffering. And then he eventually became enlightened sitting in a tree, right? Like that's kind of what they teach us in the U.S. I know a little bit more than that, but that's mostly due to just, the course of my life. It's just things I picked up being interested in some history, right? But I don't know too much about the actual philosophical religious aspect of that stuff, so I can't really speculate too much on it. So we get introduced to a lot of that type of stuff, and then we get like the Ki-esque magic system. It's very similar to chakra. It's very similar to Ki or Kai or Chai or whatever you want to call it from Dragon Ball. It's more or less that kind of style. Everyone can use this power as long as they have access to it in the way that best serves them. So Yusuke uses the ray gun and Kawabara uses swords, and it's really, really cool. So yeah, there really isn't too much else going on there. There really isn't too much development of the characters and stuff. There's some sort of hierarchy of demons or, you know, spirit creatures and stuff like that, but it's not really explained. It doesn't really need to be either. In terms of artwork and fan service, there's really great art. It does have this kind of like, I don't want to call it this, but it like feels like shoujo style, if that makes sense. It might not, but it doesn't really feel like the standard thing you think of when you think of shonen, and specifically when you think of like action shonen, battle shonen. It does have this kind of more like this more like elevated like beautifulness to it that I think is more prevalent in shoujo than shonen. Usually shonen is about making things look cool and interesting and badass, right? Not necessarily like visually appealing, like in the like beauty sense, right? But a lot of these characters, a lot of the ways they're dressed are very appealing and very interesting, and so the art style does feel shoujo-esque. And I say that in quotation marks because I don't know how to describe it beyond that, right? So, yeah, in terms of fan service, I don't think there's any, or they might have been one or two like scenes, but I don't remember them. But it does feel like there was one or two things in here somewhere, right? But I don't think it was really anything important or meaningful. This is more or less pretty safe in terms of fan service and stuff. You're not going to really see too much of it here and there because it's not really about that. So, yeah, ratings-wise, this is a 4 out of 5. Like I said, it's a lot more enjoyable than I would make it seem based on how I'm saying things. I really, really liked it. I want to continue reading the story. I want to enjoy the rest of the story and finish up the series so that I can, you know, have another great classic shonen manga under my belt. But also, the way people talk about this online makes it seem like it's the greatest shonen of its, you know, generation. And I don't really think that's the case. It doesn't, well, I mean, I don't really know too many shonen that came out in this time period that Yu Yu Hakusho came out. Mostly I know the things before it and the things after it. So, I mean, maybe it is the best thing that came out of Shonen Jump in those years, but I'm not sure that that's the case. And you would think that it's this crazy, super, you know, uber amazing story, but a lot of it is very similar to Dragon Ball and Saint Seiya, and a lot of it also then transforms into things in the big three, which I definitely agree with. I definitely see its influence, but it doesn't really feel like as epic as I thought it would be. It's not really that important that it does. It's just interesting to notice because when you see people talk about it online, it's like the greatest thing ever. And I was expecting something like amazing, something on the level of One Piece, but it didn't really end up being that. So I don't know. I'm conflicted in the sense that like I was expecting something. I wasn't able to meet those expectations, but also I still really enjoyed it, if that makes sense. So that's really all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.